Okay. Great. We have a fairly straightforward agenda. Welcome and introductions. We're going to talk a little bit about the technical aspects of the park. And I will pause at the end of that part of the presentation. It'll take about 5 or 6 minutes, but I'll pause at that point. I want to see if there's any questions really around the technical components of the park. And then we'll move to hear from the applicants, and then we'll get an overview and site assessment for Veterans Park. And then I imagine there'll be a fair amount of comments and questions following that. So that's what we're looking at. My goal is to make certain that everybody has a chance to weigh in, ask any questions they want, and at the same time be done by 6:30. So we'll see how well we can do with that. How about the next slide, Lori? I'm Steve Charbonneau. I work for a nonprofit organization. I don't represent the city, and I have the pleasure of facilitating all kinds of different meetings. And I am going to facilitate this one this evening. I'll run through some of the expectations in just a moment. Before I do, and before we move on to the specific introductions, I noticed, and I don't want to miss anybody here, but I noticed Councilman Cashman, I think I saw your little square pop up someplace. I don't see you right now, but if we were in person, I would turn to you and say, how about a few words of welcome to the group? So if you can come off mute and do that, it would be great.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, my name is Paul Cashman. I have the honor of representing District 6 on Denver City Council. Veterans Park and the neighborhoods that surround it are part of District 6. And we need dog parks in the city. There are about, in 2020, the last number I heard were about 158,000 dogs in the city and county of Denver. And I shared last night at City Council when I was letting folks know about this meeting that I think about 2/3 of those dogs use my front lawn most days of the week. I'm very anxious to hear the discussion about the possibility of a dog park at Veterans Park. And I thank everybody, and no matter how you feel about that possibility, for showing up today to hear the proposal and to make your feelings heard. With that, thank you, Steve. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Councilman. And at the risk of one more, I think I saw a square pop up for Happy Haynes. If I'm correct on that, Happy is in charge of Parks and Rec, and I don't know, Happy, if you'd like to add your welcome to that.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, everyone. I'll just echo Councilman Cashman's welcoming remarks. Thank you all for participating in this meeting. We welcome all of your thoughts and ideas. I particularly want to acknowledge your neighbors who stepped forward to bring this proposal to the city for this pilot project. It comes much better from folks within the community about the facilities that will serve the community best. And so looking forward to their presentation and to hearing all of your ideas and feedback, and every comment and every question and every criticism is welcome. And so thank you all for being a part of this. And Steve, always great to see you. Thanks for joining and helping us out here.
Good to see you again too. And we are recording the meeting tonight so that we can go back, we can check the questions, we can reference, we can make certain we cover everything that we need to. On with the introductions, the applicant and the resident team. Lauren, let me start with you and then go to Katie and Zach.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I grew up here in Colorado and moved to the Wash Park area about 7 years ago, and shortly after adopted my dog Child. So I'm very excited to be here tonight and talk with you all about our park.
Thank you. Katie.
Sure. My name's Katie. Similar to Lauren, I grew up in Denver, moved back to the area about 4.5 years ago, and have been in Platt Park for a little over 3 years with 2 dogs that desperately need exercise at all times. So thanks to everyone who's kind of helped us get to this point.
Perfect. And Zach.
Hi, I'm Zach Thrower, and I'm a Denver Public Schools teacher. And I have two dogs. I'll echo what Katie said, that they definitely need more than just a walk, pretty much on a daily basis. And yeah, just want to thank everybody for coming. And yeah, that's it.
And we'll get a chance, the three of you will have a chance to talk a little bit about the process and what you did to help get us to this point a little bit later in our agenda. And I know Lori and Jesus, you guys have put in a ton of work on this. So take a moment, introduce yourselves, and go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Lori Tabachnik. I am a senior parks planner with Denver Parks and Recreation. And though this is really a community-driven process, I am here to help from the city side. So I've been helping to guide this proposal along with the applicant resident team. We also have Jesus here, who is from our Denver Parks team as well, with our communications group. And he will mostly be in the background behind the scenes tonight, but you might see him pop up in the chat every now and then.
Perfect, thanks. Let's go to the next slide. So I think that all of us have been doing Zoom for a really long time, so it probably comes as second nature, some of these things. But let me just make a few points. I do a number of community meetings, and a lot of times they're around interesting topics that people bring different perspectives to. And that's what's interesting about living in a community and living in a neighborhood. There's a couple of things that I'd like to remind and ask you to pay attention to this evening. I know that we may not all agree about every aspect, and that's perfectly fine. That's why we're here to hear your questions and we're here to hear your opinions. The two things I'm looking for is, one, I would like you to listen to your neighbors with the intent to understand. I think that's an important way to listen, is listening to understand. And then secondly, ask your questions, share your opinions, but please do so respectfully. I think that's important. We want to keep our community and our neighborhood a respectful place. As far as logistics go, I've got about 56 little square pictures on my screen, and it's impossible for me to necessarily know when you wave your hand or when you want to say something. And so when we get to the point in our agenda, the 2 points in our agenda, where I'm taking questions or comments, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. And that's that little magical button down at the bottom of your screen. For some of you, it'll just say raise hands. For others of you, it will say reaction. And you can click on that little square, and then you will see an opportunity for you to raise your little hand. What that does is that pops your window up to the top of my screen. And so I can see who's next, and I'll just call on folks in order. And again, you can share your opinion, you can ask your questions respectfully. I would also ask that you try to keep your comments to about a minute, because you can imagine with 57 of us, that's about what we need to do, is be as succinct and brief as we can. In that, please feel free to put any questions you have in the chat box if you'd like to do it. Jesus is going to be monitoring that, and periodically I'm going to just ask Jesus if we have any questions in the chat box that we need to attend to. One last thing, if you are not called on, please keep your mic on mute. That way we're not going to hear everything else that's going on in your household, which is probably an okay thing. So thanks again. And let's go ahead to the next slide, Lori. And I believe this is where you sort of take us through the technical update part, right?
Yes, that's correct. So I thought it would be important to give a brief overview of the dog park master plan technical update, which is the plan that kind of got us here and kind of built the roadmap and the framework for where we are today. So I just want to take you guys briefly through this plan. As you can understand, it's a little bit of a mouthful, so you might hear me say plan or technical update, but they are the same thing, interchangeable. So a little bit about the dog park master plan update. It was an update of a 2010 dog park master plan. It was completed in 2019. During the planning process, we had a lot of community engagement touch points, including public meetings, pop-ups, and a widely distributed survey that reached the whole city. This document was really intended as both a tool for staff to be able to use technically, but also as a guide for the public to be able to see what we're planning for dog parks in the future. The plan had 5 main goals. The first is planning for future dog parks, which included an analysis of where our current dog parks are, but also where we're lacking them in the city, and where we can prioritize them in the future. It was also intended to update our design guidelines and site selection criteria, meaning being able to best locate a dog park. New dog parks. We also revisited how we maintain the dog parks as well as regulate them. And lastly, this plan was intended to study successful dog park practices throughout North America. So this map shows our current dog park landscape. In blue, you'll see all of our permanent dog parks. We currently have 13 of them. In the yellow color or the gold color, you'll see our temporary or pop-up dog parks, one in Skyline Park and one at Quality Hill, which is scheduled to open in early March. In orange, you'll see a dog park that will be coming online soon, probably later this year. And that is going to be located at Sanderson Gulch. And in pink, you can see Veterans Park, which we're here to talk about today. So this next map shows what we are considering our priority areas for future dog parks, which is helping us prioritize where dog parks are most needed. So the blue hatched line that you see here is considered a service area gap, which means that there aren't any dog parks in that area, or there's not easy access to a dog park. That is overlaid with the residents per square mile, which indicates density. So where they're overlaid and where high density meets the service area gap is the highest priority areas. As you can see, we're really trying to focus our efforts on Central and South Denver because they're the ones lacking the most in these amenities. So one of the most important and biggest things to come out of this technical update was the idea of a community-driven process. This was intended to be able to really give the power to our community and our citizens to advocate for the dog parks because it's one of the most common requests that we receive, and it can be hard for us to keep up with all of the demand for these amenities. So we decided to create a pilot program in which residents could propose sites for new dog parks. They could take the leading role in community outreach, fundraise for the dog park if needed, and also help maintain and take stewardship of new dog parks after they come online. So how this actually ended up working is that we launched the pilot program in late 2019 with the first round ending in early 2020. With the launch of the pilot program, residents were encouraged to propose new dog parks sites via an online form. After we collected all of our proposals at the end of round one, a DPR committee reviewed each of the proposals. The committee consisted of lots of different facets of our parks department, including our operations teams, forestry, design and construction, and planning. So after reviewing all the proposals that we got, we chose 3 that were able to go and continue down this little roadmap. So those 3 proposals over time were merged into 2, which includes Quality Hill Park and also Veterans. And I'll speak a little bit more to how that happened later. But this little roadmap shows you exactly where we are in this process. We're in step number 2 at holding an open house. So we're slowly making our way down the line.
Great, thank you, Lori. I know that's kind of a bit of a process and a bit of a sort of technical, how did we get to this spot presentation. I want to see if there's just a couple of questions about what Lori just covered. So please remember, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat or you can just hit the little raise hand button. I will call on you and questions. Hey, Jesus, we have anything in the chat that we need to pay attention to?
We do. We have one from Brianna. Patricia, read this one, and then we'll make sure to get you. Lori, I think this might be a question for you. Can you please speak to what happened with the Valverde and Harvard Gulch proposals?
I can't off the top of my head speak to that. But I am happy to talk to you about it via email. I just need to go through my files to remember exactly what happened with them. We got a ton of proposals.
Okay, thanks. Patricia, your hand's up. Don't forget to come off mute. Patricia, you're still on mute. So if you want to come off mute, and it looks like you have a question. I'm going to let Patricia fight with technology for a moment. Anybody else that has a question?
No, but you had to put your hand up. I don't know how to do it.
There, start video.
Okay, well, you lucked out because I saw you on the bottom of the screen. So I don't know whether that's Janice or whether that's somebody else, but go ahead, ask your question.
Oh, yes. This is Tony, Janice's husband. My question is, can you utilize the map to show exactly where the proposed dog park area would be? And is there possibilities that there could be a different type of dog park that gives people the ability to not have a fenced in dog park and go like off leash for certain hours of the day and leave everything as it is the way it is now?
So that was a couple of questions, Tony. That's not a problem. I know, Lori, you're going to talk a little later about location within the area, but if you want to talk to a couple of the other questions that Tony brought up.
Yes, thanks, Steve. Yes, we'll be discussing particular specifics of Veterans Park later. But as far as designated off-leash areas, right now that is not something that Denver Parks currently has as a rule. In all parks right now, as you all probably know, off-leash dogs are prohibited. There has been a lot of questions about designated off-leash areas without a fence, but ultimately we're just not really ready yet to kind of open our parks up to that. But it is an ongoing conversation that we're having. But this particular one would be a traditional dog park with a fence.
And where?
I see a number of questions popping up about really the area, the spacing, the park, all of that. I know Lori, you talked sort of about the process to getting to this point. Maybe it makes sense for us to move forward and start collecting all of those after you've had a chance to walk us through the park piece. So let's go ahead with the next slide. And so we want to hear a little bit from Lauren, Katie, and Zach, a little bit about, and I think the next slide talks is the three things, kind of, you introduced yourself, so that's great. But what prompted you to propose a dog park here? What have you done to date? How have you interacted with the community? And I would say, Lauren, let's go with you first. We did introductions with you first, so if you don't mind, let's start there.
Sure. So every summer I play volleyball at Wash Park, and my dog usually comes with me. I've had several friends get tickets for letting their dog off their leash after our games. And so when I saw the email come out that there were applications open for our area and that this part of Denver was in need of a dog park, I submitted a proposal for either Wash Park or Veterans Park. And then Lori contacted me and let me know that Katie had submitted one for the Platt Park area. And if we were willing to work together on Veterans Park, that might be a good option. So then we teamed up and got signatures. We started doing it in person until COVID hit, and everything went on pause. And then about 6 months later, we got to get the rest of our signatures online. In the meantime, Katie took the lead on reaching out to a registered neighborhood organization and getting a letter of support. And then I worked with Councilman Cashman to get a letter of support. And then after that, we moved to this phase where we're going to have this community meeting. So Zach, Katie, and I flyered your neighborhood, and that's why we're here tonight.
Great. Appreciate that. Katie, what can you add?
Sure. So like Lauren said, she and I have been working on this proposal for over 2 years at this point, which feels a little bit crazy, but COVID has very much changed our perception of time. I have got 2 dogs. They're 1.5 and almost 3. They're very energetic breeds. And I'm guessing a lot of us have heard the phrase, a tired dog is a happy dog, which is easier said than done for some of us with small yards. So I've been bouncing around dog parks across the area, some in Inglewood, some in Denver. And my dogs love it, but I think we all know that once you're driving 15 or 20 minutes one way to get to a dog park, if you're in the middle of a work day or trying to balance other chores or kids or anything like that, it really starts to take a chunk out of your day. And so similar to Lauren, when I saw asking for proposals for local parks, I was excited to kind of step in and help find something that can fill that gap for the South Denver area. One of the things I've noticed with some of the other dog parks that I've gone to is that there's certainly a community of people that are regularly there, and they've kind of become friends. The dogs have become friends. It's obviously a huge benefit to all of us to have well-socialized dogs that know how to behave among other dogs and other humans. So I think it would be really cool to have a similar community around a dog park closer to our neighborhood.
Great. Zach, what can you share?
Yeah, so I was in West Wash Park, and because this has gone on for so long, I actually live in Rosedale, Harvard Gulch right now. So I hear what you're saying, the people in the chat who are asking about why not Rosedale, why not Harvard Gulch. And I think, Rosedale was an option at one point, but really we're trying to focus our efforts on just getting this one thing done and through the process. So I hear what you're saying. For me, Rosedale would be great because I could walk over to Rosedale. I will say that right now, almost every day, there's a impromptu dog park going on. There's no fence. There's, well, I don't want to out us, I guess, but it's not super safe. But the thing that I think is really positive about that meetup is that people are meeting each other who otherwise would not meet each other. So there's this great, I've made friends there that I otherwise wouldn't have, and people are constantly having conversations that they wouldn't. So I see this as not just a community of dogs, but also a lot of prospects for people being able to meet each other. This is important for a place where we have a lot of people moving in from other places. And there was another question about why not Wash Park, and that was where I started on this journey. Was Wash Park is enormous. Why can't we, cordon off an area to have a dog park? And what I heard over and over and over again from people who already went down this road was there was annual opposition from the neighborhood association. I'm going a little bit off script here, but there seemed to be a lot less opposition to Veterans Park than there was for Wash Park, and I think Lauren would echo that sentiment as well. So another thing, and this is also being noticed in the chat, is that one of the days I was passing out flyers informing people that this meeting was going to happen, and somebody said, "Isn't this already a dog park? Isn't Veterans already a dog park?" And it was a joke, but I literally looked over at the park, and there's dogs running around everywhere. So, you know, a lot of these spaces are being used for dog exercise already, and why not do it in a way that's safe and legal, frankly.
Appreciate that, Zach. I appreciate the work that you guys have done up to this point. And if we have questions from the neighbors from the group later, you can jump in and help us answer that. Lori, let's go to the next slide. This is where you're going to kind of show us the maps and give us the overview. So please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So I am going to go over Veterans Park, the park itself as an overview, and also an initial site assessment after we looked at the criteria of where a dog park could potentially go. So first, I wanted to just talk to you guys about a little bit about why Veterans Park. Zach just touched on this, but I think it's important to kind of know where we were and how we got here. So as I mentioned in the previous section, there were 3 original proposals, one for Quality Hill, one for Rosedale, and one for Washington Park. As time went on and we were working through this process, which is again a pilot, so it's our first time doing it, we realized that Washington and Rosedale really had a lot of overlap, and it was just made the most sense to consolidate efforts and focus efforts on one park. Veterans, we after doing an analysis, we realized that it has a lot of underutilized space that would be available for a dog park. And as Zach mentioned, just kind of had a more initial support than both Washington Park and Rosedale as we were going along. So just a little bit about Veterans Park. I'm sure you guys are all very familiar with it, but it is considered a community-sized park at 16.2 acres. It is directly adjacent to Denver South High School. It is to the east of the high school. It has a few facilities, including 2 softball fields and 1 mixed-use field, along with a parking lot, a restroom, and a walking trail. So when we were looking at the site and potential areas for consideration for a dog park, there were a few things that we were looking for and had to match up our site criteria to what is available in the park. So what we were looking for was an avoidance of water detention basins. So you can see on the map in blue, those are the water detention basins. As you can see on the east side of the park, a lot of it is taken up with the basin, as well as on the west side, a little sliver kind of in the center. We were also looking for a suitable size for a neighborhood dog park, which is considered around 1 acre. We wanted to make sure it would not interfere with other park activities, including playgrounds, picnics, or picnic areas, and fields and things of that nature. We also wanted to make sure that it was within a 50 to 100 foot buffer of homes. Ideally, it would be 100 feet, but 50 to 100 is just a good rule of thumb. From this map, I just want to mention that these are all approximate sizes and layouts. It's by no means what will exactly be in the future if this does move forward. but they're just generalized blobs to help you visualize where it could go. So I will be talking about each of these three areas and their advantages and disadvantages next. So with Area A, it is the southernmost option behind the softball field. It is about 1 acre, and some advantages of this particular site would be that, number one, it would activate an underutilized part of the park. Right now, it is used for storage materials for Denver Parks operations teams. So it's not actually a very usable part of the park for neighbors and residents. It is obviously the furthest away from homes and the school, which would help mitigate any noise concerns from neighbors. And it is quite flat and barren at the moment, so there wouldn't be any impact to existing trees. On the con side, as I mentioned, it's being used currently for storage space, but that is something just internally that we'll have to work through. Shouldn't be a huge issue. But it's also not easily seen from the entrance, which would mean just some extra wayfinding would probably be necessary in order to direct people to the dog park. Area B is more central. It is also about 1 acre. It is currently kind of a grassy area without any programmed activities. It is also considered kind of underutilized. So it would be a nice way to activate that space. It would also be seen from the park entrance. And just anecdotally, we've heard that a lot of people have off-leash dogs in that area, so it could help mitigate off-leash dogs. So the cons is that it's close to the water detention basin, which again is kind of an internal DPR design question that we'll just have to work out, but nothing to be too concerned about. But it is also clearly closer to the homes than Area A. So that is just something to note. And last, Area C, it's also about 1 acre. It would be visible from the entrance, from the parking lot. However, it is the closest location to homes and the school, and it does have the most existing trees. Again, not anything that would be a huge problem to work around. We wouldn't be necessarily removing a bunch of trees, but just, just one more thing to kind of think about in that area. So that is the end of my presentation. So we're going to open it up for question and answer.
Perfect. And I want to remind you, if you want to comment or if you have a question, please raise your hand. And then please remember to come off of mute and please try to keep your comments fairly succinct. Let me go with Kent first and then with Chris.
Hi, thanks everyone. Thanks for the time and putting this together. Just one question. I'm a little concerned about the small size of those proposed spaces. Question is, are those the only proposed spaces that are being considered? And is there any consideration for combining spaces that was previously raised in the chat as far as combining B and C?
Yeah, so those are the only spaces we're looking at. I think options B and C could potentially be combined. We're trying to separate them for now just to get a sense of how people feel, especially it being the closest area to the homes. So
my thought there, just since I have a minute to comment and then I'll mute again, is just that I think the too small of a dog park is gonna kind of do a half solution to this problem. And it's gonna just, still have off-leash people doing, off-leash activities on the other side. And if it's not done correctly, then it's just gonna be other unused space. So I would vote to combine B and C. I live in the neighborhood and that would be my vote. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Chris.
Yeah, hi. Well, thanks again all for being here and pulling this together. Resident, live in the neighborhood, certainly in favor of some kind of regulated fenced dog park, just as somebody who has a dog that we regularly walk on leash and little kiddos. There's been some uncomfortable, intimidating moments. So certainly in favor. I like the creativity regarding looking at A, B, and C rather than the kind of the main typically kind of used area around Veterans Park. And so I appreciate that. One kind of comment, I think been raised a little bit in the chat. If there are opportunities to think about other improvements as well, maybe relatively small ones, but thinking about either benches or possibly play areas, nothing grand, but even something fairly humble, I think would be valuable. And also even thinking about there are one or two spots where it could benefit from either a gravel kind of path entrance or others. I think it would be great to see those combined in kind of this proposal as a nod to kind of the community.
Great, thank you. I'm going to go with Allie and then Brianna.
Hi, I am a neighbor, live right on the park, and I'm kind of disappointed that this has all been planned without ever talking to the neighbors of the actual park. But I'm really glad that we have this opportunity. And I just wanted to put out there that the people who live in this area already contribute to the common good in a lot of ways. We have All City Stadium. We have the tennis park. We have soccer games every Saturday. We have softball games many nights of the week that go till 10 o'clock at night. Now we have a testing site and we have the highway. We have really contributed to the network of this community and this area. And I think that putting a dog park here right next to these houses is too much to ask. So my question is, there's a master plan for this park. It was created many years ago with lots of input, and the neighbors here have been waiting for that master plan to be implemented. We've been told there's no resources, there's no way to manage it, there's nothing that can happen. So it's really hard to get behind a dog park that just sort of sees this as space that could be used for a dog park when there's already a plan in place. So how does the technical plan work with the master plans that are already in existence for these parks?
Yeah, it's a great question. Hopefully they are supposed to work in harmony together. And I'm really sorry to hear that the Veterans Park Master Plan hasn't been implemented. In the past, there really was a disconnect between the master plan getting done and implementation. So you're not alone in that at all. But with your comment and the previous comment about looking at Veterans Park as a whole, we're definitely taking note of that, and we can definitely explore bundled opportunities. It doesn't just have to be a dog park. We can look at other opportunities for increasing play or walking trails. So it's not totally off the table. And I just really appreciate those comments, actually, because it brings that to our attention, and we can work towards trying to maybe get Veterans Park as a whole up to speed.
Thank you. Thank you, Allie. Let me go with Brianna, then Stephen, and then Jennifer. So Brianna.
This is actually her husband, Des. It's her computer.
Okay, no problem. Jump in.
So we actually live just up the street from Allie, and it's kind of the same concern is, I don't know how often you guys come on here on the weekends during soccer season and all that. It's already wall-to-wall people, and then you got people flying up and down Florida to go to the stadium. It's a cut through. So has there been any traffic studies on the additional people for it? Because it's already way too much. A kid already got hit on his bike in Florida. So we also have a puppy that's 2 years old. He needs exercise as well, but we also have kids, and it's already a very high traffic area. and was just another thing to get more cars in and out of here. On the weekends during soccer, all the streets are filled. I mean, it's bumper to bumper. And seems like the Rosedale / Harvard Gulch, which is, I don't know how many times bigger than Veterans, could be a much better spot. In addition to that, the 50 to 100 feet from the houses, is that from the property line?
Yes.
Okay, so section C, there's no way it'd be a sliver. Like I don't know how much you guys, it would be really narrow from their property line.
I think you should measure that again.
Yeah, there's just no way. It's 100 feet from their
They are
property line.
guidelines, so
Sure.
they're not intended to be specific to the exact foot, but yes, I hear you.
So you haven't actually measured them yet, and you're stating
Okay,
those are all
easy.
1 acre lots?
No, we have measured them actually, just very generally, but as I mentioned, they're really approximate layout, so it isn't an exact thing yet.
Right.
So let me go with Stephen if we're good with that. I don't want to cut you off I don't want to cut you off if you're.
Well, has there been a traffic study? Do we know how many additional cars between on the weekends, but it's already here? Like,
Okay, Lori, do we have a
No,
traffic
there
study yet?
No, there has not been a
Okay.
traffic study.
that
yet.
seems like it'd be good.
Okay,
Noted.
noted and fair enough. Stephen.
Yes, thank you. I'll try and do this quickly. Number one, I don't know if people have been over by South High School, the fields right there by the neighbors, and Veterans Park. There are literally dozens upon dozens of dogs that are running free, including our own, despite the possibility of tickets. So I would say we might want to balance, and I'm empathetic to people wanting their neighborhood to stay safe and good for them, but we might want to balance that against a fenced, controlled area rather than wide open South and Veterans, dogs running without control, and what that means in terms of parking. Secondly, I spoke to Scott Gilmore several months ago. There is another group, and Scott said we shouldn't do anything. Our group is called Who Let the Dogs Out? And thank you. And the last time this group was involved, it was involved in the goose question, and we were able to collect almost 2,000 signatures to do something about the geese. We're prepared to do the same if that is necessary to show sufficient community support, because we want to make sure that the dogs are not let out. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephen. And I'm hoping somehow we make that connection between the group that you're working with and Lori, the groups that you're working with. So if there's a way to get an email or phone number or some kind of connection made there, that would be great. Jennifer, and then Thomas, and then Micah.
This is actually Andrew with Jennifer. How come your camera doesn't work? There we go.
There you go. Okay, Andrew.
Hey, thanks so much. Good analysis here. You know, we're one of the property owners that actually backs right up onto C, kind of at the pinchest point of all of that. And I do agree with Dez's sort of estimation there. That would be really tight, and we can smell the buses that idle at All City Station or All City Stadium when there's an away game. I would imagine that we would have some impacts from the dog park as well that located there. We are also, users of the space with our puppy, and I just wanted to say that we've really built a lot of community around the people that use the open space as we have it now. I would hate to have a moment where we invite a lot heavier traffic into this area and sort of lose that ability to have that community resource. So, I mean, I'm not to say that can't happen with the establishment of a dog park, but I would say that I think there's some formalization of this and a little bit of a potential for a clumsy design that could impact our ability to meet as neighbors and to share in this neighborhood. Allie's exactly right. We have a lot of things going on here and a lot of impacts. The highway is a really big piece of that. And I could see this just sort of adding to some of that chaos. And I I do fear that we would lose a little bit of that community moment. So appreciate your consideration, appreciate the further analysis, traffic studies, all of that. I'd love to get deeper into some of those issues. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you. Thomas.
Good afternoon, Jennifer, and everybody. Lori, thank you for all the work you put into this. Am I going through?
Yeah, you're
Yeah, thank you.
you're coming
Appreciate it.
through. You're doing fine.
You're doing a great job. I like A, B, and C. I really appreciate that. And it's a distance from what I'm interested in is the flagpole and the bourne marker over there across on Iowa Avenue. And what I'm hearing here, there's no plans now or in the future to effect that space. True?
I'm so sorry. Would you mind repeating your question?
Along Iowa, there is the flagpole and the flagpole ceremony area and the Bourne kilometer marker. It's a city historical site there out of France. Well, anyhow, all that's going to be left alone now and into the future. That's my concern.
Yes, that is correct.
There you
This
go.
would not be getting into that area whatsoever.
Okay, as long as I have the experts here, I just thought I'd ask. Thank you.
Good
Thanks.
deal. Thank you, Thomas.
Sorry about that.
Micah.
Hi there, thank you. And I really appreciate all the work people have done. I know that this couldn't have been easy, and appreciate, coming up with options. I just reiterate, trying to do the chat and between stoplights and driving. So just want to reiterate, I think there were some numbers that were mentioned around data, like people I talked to when I was canvassing Veterans Park, putting up these things. There was many people who wanted it, and I would just be interested in the data that actually shows, there were signatures and stuff like that, and then the data around what we're talking about as well, because I think there's a lot of anecdotal. This is a heated conversation, right? We all have heated opinions. These are animals that we love. I have an animal that I walk and really appreciate, and again, like my kids though, are the ones who experience the speeding cars, the trash. So one of my biggest concerns so I echo all of that, and I would really love to see more data. The other point I make is, this was what I was thinking about when we first heard about this, is Veterans Park isn't maintained, period. I've walked it. My kids are now playing sports at another city park. There are no tree stumps. There is well-maintained lawns, where if you take a walk around Veterans Park, there are tree stumps that haven't been removed or maintained or planted over for more than 3 years. So pre-COVID, when we had a windstorm, there's trees that are dead that haven't been removed, and it's been years. There was a dead raccoon around in the spillway for at least two months. It decayed. So I don't know how long that takes, but my dog definitely loved it. And so what I fear is that we're increasing people traffic, we're increasing dog traffic, and this area isn't maintained as is. There used to be trash cans throughout the park. Now there's one trash can that has had appearances and disappearances at times, that's down in the parking lot, usually filled with beer cans at the end of the weekend from, again, what Andrew and Jen mentioned and Allie mentioned with softball games and stuff like that. So that this high traffic area, and no restrooms, like this high traffic area already can't maintain the neighborhood traffic. And so my concern is bringing all these new people in when we don't even have trash cans or can't take care of stumps and downed tree branches, is just a concern, not only aesthetically, but safety wise. So just to point that out, that, if resources are strained already, I would be really concerned with increasing that traffic. So thank you. I appreciate you taking our questions.
I appreciate you bringing up a number of those points, Micah. I've seen a lot of really good questions and comments run through the chat box. I'm also watching my clock. I do think it would be a great suggestion to collect those questions and write up answers to them, and then maybe post those somewhere where everybody can see them. And then there's been questions that have just been verbalized around data, traffic study. What about just ongoing improvement in the park. So I think those are all pieces that there's some additional work that Parks and Rec can do and get back to everyone with some of that information.
Yes,
Let me-
agreed, Steve. We will definitely make an FAQ after
Yep,
the.
and that's why we're recording and that's why we're taking chat. So I want to assure everybody on this call that even though there's a lot of additional questions and comments, they're not just going to disappear. So I want to assure you of that. Laura, or Lori, I guess it is, and then Grace.
Where is it?
Hi there, thank you. I am here with my husband and another friend. We all live in the vicinity of Veterans Park and go there quite frequently with our dogs. I want to express support for this. I very much appreciate the effort that has been taken. And I also think that this park would be a community park. I have no way of knowing the data, but I would expect that this would not be a park that people would drive to walk their dogs. We all know that dogs are there all the time. And most of the people who take their dogs there now walk there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Grace.
Hi, sorry. I can't figure out the video right now on my phone. Thank you so much for putting this meeting together. Thank you, Councilman Cashman. I think you received a letter from me back at the beginning of the pandemic when our Doodle Fest was started, and all of us got pandemic puppies and really loved sharing that time together and getting together, and this community started, and we have grown, and I understand that there's a lot of concern about safety, about dogs being off leash, and I completely get it and I respect that. I was just wondering, and by the way, my neighbors have made incredible points tonight. Allie, Andrew, and Micah, thank you for all of your points. I was just wondering if it was possibly discussed having like an hour or 90 minutes a day on the weekdays, just an off-leash period, and that wouldn't require building a park, and it wouldn't interfere with maybe athletics, but it would just give the neighborhood a chance to let our dogs off leash without fear of ticketing. I'm wondering what the impacts of that would be and if it was talked about. That's all.
Yes.
And I'm gonna look to you, Lori, or to you, Happy, because I know you both said something about this. So.
Oh yeah, Happy. Feel free to jump in. And if
Yeah,
it's
sorry
not-
if you already talked about it previously and I missed it, I apologize.
Go ahead, Lori, jump in.
No, sorry, I was having trouble finding my mute button. Yeah, this question of an unfenced off-leash area was studied just a few months ago. The department looked carefully into it, consulted with a lot of folks. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board took up the issue. We received lots of feedback and data and input from our animal control division, from safety staff, from our risk management folks, from our legal team, and the conclusion at the end of the day was, just based on safety, risk considerations, liability, operational challenges, management, staffing capabilities, budget, that we just would not move forward with establishing these off-leash areas that are not contained. And so that was just a few months ago, and I think we have the data is probably on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board website.
Okay, thank you, Happy. And Kit, I see your hand up, but I want to come back to Lori for just a second, because Lori, you had switched over to a different slide here, and I wasn't certain if you were, wanting to point something out or.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. We just got a request to have the map up again, so just wanted to make sure everyone could see it, but thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Kit.
Hi, I'm raising my hand for Janice Oliver. It looks like she doesn't have the ability to do that, so I'm just going to pass the baton to her.
Okay, Janice.
Janice and I, this is Tony, we're concerned that the regional park that Veterans Park is, I think, designated as, has already exceeded the impact of no, it's exceeded the impact of a local park to what is now kind of like more of a regional park
city.
impact.
Mhm.
There's too much stuff going on back here now, as it is, to add more impact to the area, and the local residents are going to be penalized from that. And I wanted to point out that, and someone else had already talked about how congested the neighborhood gets with all these events. And that's number one. And number two, the areas other than area A are, really in our face. I mean, this is, the people that live here now, to see that turn into a dog park right behind their houses
We back right
is
up to it.
completely unacceptable in our minds. And I just wanted to emphasize as much as I can that is something that, we will definitely object to and fight, because we don't want a dog park behind our houses. And not only that, the traffic already in this area has already exceeded what this Veterans Park was supposed to be in the first place, which is a local park, not a regional park. And the uses that have been allowed back here so far have exceeded that. And so we don't think that we have the ability back there to handle the impact of another use back there that'll bring in even more cars and more people from other
Yeah.
areas.
We believe that it won't be just the local people who live here in this neighborhood walking their dogs,
Absolutely not.
that they're looking for a place where people in the south part of Denver can still drive their dogs over. And we are already highly impacted and love the localization of our neighborhood, and greatly appreciate you considering that.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Jet.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got time for one or two more questions or comments. Any last one or two more questions or comments?
I want to say thank you for hosting this and putting it together. Appreciate all the hard work you guys have done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lori, anything that you want to say before we end this evening?
No, I just would like to reiterate thank you to everyone who came and expressed your opinions. Oh, and actually we do have one last slide just to tell you guys about next steps. So after this meeting, and as you guys might have seen, there is a survey where we will be collecting additional feedback. So please take the survey, send it to anyone who you think might be interested. That survey will be closing on March 18th. Once that is closed, we will compile and analyze all of the feedback that we've gotten from all the different sources, including this community meeting, the survey, all the comments, all the emails that we've received, and we will be making a determination if there is enough community support to move forward. So that will be the next step. So if anyone is interested in getting notified about the process, there is a place on the survey to leave your email address. So I encourage everyone to do that. And as always, my email is here as well. So you're more than welcome to email me directly, and those comments will be recorded.
Okay, I just saw one hand up. Lily, I'm ready to close up, so can you be quick?
All right, I was just wondering if you have a website or something you can visit?
Yes, we do. It is our Denver Gov website, the Parks and Recreation website. Jesus can probably put it in the chat for you.
So just in case you're on a phone, in a car, it's denvergov.org/parks. And my understanding, just as we wrap up, is that, there's a page where we can download all of this information. I understand that this meeting, it's been recorded. I understand it'll be posted as a YouTube video that you can come back, you can review it and look at. You're going to put together a frequently asked questions from what we've either heard this evening or what we've seen in the chat room. I'm assuming that the PowerPoint will be available also as a PDF you can download. And we've got several areas where you've asked for additional data or additional information, and we'll pull all of that down for you too. So I would encourage you, go to denvergov.org/parks, and you'll be able to search it out there. As we end tonight, Happy, any last words you want?
No, thanks for the robust discussion. It was a good session, lots to chew on, and look forward to the next steps.
Perfect. Councilman, last words to you.
Yeah, just thank you too. We had almost 60 people show up to express their opinions, pro and con, and that's the way this deal has to work. And I just look forward to seeing how things move forward and the other assessments people have asked for.
Great. I want to thank everybody, add my thanks to it. I appreciate the robust discussion. I appreciate everybody jumping in and sharing their questions and opinions. Stay warm and have a good evening, and thank you very much.
Thank you all.